Hello everyone, welcome to the first edition of the Houck Report, where the truth matters. Okay, we're going to be talking some real truth here, and I want to focus on the situation we're now dealing with regarding the NFL and the players that disrespect their flag and country by kneeling. What's really important here is that a false lying narrative that is being embraced by players is causing a lot of controversy. This is why the truth matters, and how dangerous a lying narrative is, and how it can bring out violence and chaos to a nation. So this is my commentary. This first started with Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. While he does have the right to do so, he also has to deal with the consequences of his actions, just like the rest of us, especially when it's a result of a lying narrative that he embraces. When I was a cop, I was not allowed to make political statements to the press when I was on or off duty. If I did, I would probably be suspended, if not fired. That's what happens when you work for someone. We have seen many times in the past people being fired or disciplined for speaking up on an issue they believe in while working or violating some part of that contract that they signed. Now, Kaepernick said, and I quote, "I'm not going to stand up to show pride in the flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color." Now, of course, we all know this to be a lie. Blacks aren't oppressed. If they were, Kaepernick would not have gotten a multi-million-dollar contract, and we would not have had a black president. Is there racism? Of course there is. There's racism against blacks, against whites, against Asians. Racism is prevalent all over the world, okay? So, of course there's racism. But however, it does not exist to the point of Al Sharpton, Black Lives Matter, and other race hustlers state, all right? Now, many of the NFL players that are said to be so thoughtful and smart have embraced this lie. I bet not one of these players actually did some real research to see if the narrative they so quickly embrace is true. The real issue for black Americans in the inner cities is the crime rates and the black-on-black crime. The high school dropout rate, which is over 50%, and the embrace of black thug culture perpetrated by rappers, which drilled the thought of violence into the heads of young blacks as an answer to settling disputes with a gun. Another issue is the out-of-wedlock birth rate, which is over 70% for American blacks and over 80% in Chicago. Listen, in 2014 in New York City, blacks committed 75% of the shootings and 70% of the robberies, and they are only 23% of the population. If anyone is to blame for many of the problems in the inner cities, it's not the cops, but the Democratic politicians who they keep voting for that do nothing to improve their living conditions. It's tough enough being a cop, but with a lying narrative perpetrated by Black Lives Matter, the mainstream media and other anti-cop groups is pounded into the head of black males every day something bad is going to happen. What is even more shocking is that the Democratic politicians embrace this false narrative, and the Congressional Black Caucus utilizes a lie like hands up, don't shoot to help promote hatred and division. These are our leaders? You should really think about that next time you go and vote. I'm tired of hearing how minorities are disproportionately stopped by police and incarcerated. Well, this wouldn't happen if black males didn't disproportionately commit more crimes, and the statistics prove that out. You don't want to believe it, I can't help you. The statistics are there. Go to the FBI Uniform Crime Report. It's there. Look at it. Many black communities have serious crime problems, and the rhetoric only helps promote it. However, the politicians that they elect to govern them promote that same anti-cop narrative, and things only get worse. Here are some true statistics. Look them up for yourself, and if you don't believe them, then you're part of the problem. Black males are 6% of the population. I'm talking that's countrywide. They're responsible for 42% of the cop killings. In 2010, 62,593 blacks were victims of white violence. That same year, 320,000 whites were the victims of black violence. That's like 5 times higher. In 2015, police shot 494 whites and 258 blacks. The majority of them were armed and or endangered the life of the officer or another victim. That's almost twice as many whites shot than blacks. Listen, I acknowledge that we have some bad cops, and they must be taken off the streets. However, this is being done and officers are being prosecuted or fired for misconduct. We still have more to address, and with training and money, things will get better. But to state that the police violence is the major problem is a lie, and statistics bear that out. I can't help if you don't want to believe it. Many people believe what they want. Listen, this past 4th of July weekend of violence in Chicago resulted in 14 murdered, 100 wounded. Where was the outrage? I mean, really, where's the outrage? If we had a terrorist attack that killed and wounded this many in the same period, the news coverage countrywide would be massive. Everyone would be asking how and why. However, since this happens in black neighborhoods, most of the national press is silent, and so are the politicians who represent these people. You have to ask yourself why. The only conclusion I can come up with is racism on the part of Democratic politicians elected to represent them. Or they just don't care about you. I mean, just look at it. These cities have been controlled by Democrats for so long. And we saw how bad the crime was in New York City until we got a Republican. And Mayor Giuliani was elected. Boy, did things change. This is a safe city now. Anyway, here's my message to all the NFL players out there who think that they are helping the black community by disrespecting the flag and our veterans and alienating themselves from their fans. By embracing the false anti-cop narrative, you have now become part of the problem. You have the ability and the money to go into the inner cities and utilize your fame to help the inner city youth to head down the correct path in life. I see very few with the power you have actually go into these communities to help. I ask you, how do you feel when an 8-year-old black child was assassinated in an alley in Chicago by a gang in retaliation for the action of his father, and his father would not even help police identify the shooters? How do you feel when a black child in the playground on a swing is shot and killed when 2 black thugs shoot it out in the middle of the street? How do you feel when black parents have to keep their children indoors because it's too dangerous for that child to go to the park and play? How does it feel when a black child in the inner city is robbed of their childhood and have to live where dangerous thugs rule? Is that enough for you to be outraged? Or are you just outraged when a white police officer kills a black armed thug trying to protect that same child in that same neighborhood from harm? Or is it just easy to take a knee? All right? If you think you are so smart and as thoughtful as the press makes you out to be, think of what I just said and ask yourself, how can I really be the solution instead of the problem? The real truth matters, and by ignoring it and deflecting the inner city's problems to another false narrative, things in the inner cities will never change. Make this part of your problem and come up with some solutions. The lives of the inner city children depend on it.